Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be looking at two parts of a fictional anthology series,
Okay.
A Giant's Curse and War of the Universe. And they're connected. Giant's Curse is kind of like the foundation.
Right.
And then we just kind of plunge headfirst into War of the Universe, which is the sequel.
It's a really interesting way to do a deep dive like this because it lets us really get into like the evolution of the protagonist, Dakota Frandsen, as he goes through these increasingly complex and dangerous paranormal events.
That's crazy. So in A Giant's Curse, we meet Dakota, and he's a paranormal investigator, and he discovers he has these psychic abilities.
Yeah.
He's got visions, dream journaling. He can sense auras. I mean, it's pretty wild.
It's a lot.
But then right away, he has these really intense encounters.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, there's the Men in Black.
Yeah.
Talk about a creepy introduction to the paranormal world.
And Men in Black are so interesting because they kind of foreshadow the larger conflict.
Right. It happens in War of the Universe. Yeah. They're not just these random figures. They represent something like a hidden force manipulating history.
It's like the author is dropping all these little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, for sure.
These little hints of something bigger while he's like, going to work, going grocery shopping, just normal everyday life stuff.
Exactly.
And then there's that terrifying incident with the ghost child with a chainsaw.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that imagery really stuck with me.
Oh, it's a powerful image, and it really shows how unpredictable and dangerous this paranormal world that Dakota lives in is.
Yeah, for sure.
And it really kind of sets the stage for all the chaos he's going to have to deal with in War of the Universe.
Okay, so let's talk about War of the Universe. So we know that it picks up right where A Giant's Curse leaves off. But, what's going on at the beginning of War of the Universe?
Yeah.
Where do we find Dakota? So at the beginning of War of the Universe, Dakota is recruited by this kind of shadowy government organization.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he's not just a freelance investigator anymore. He's been brought into this world of secrets and intrigue and tasked with looking into all these strange and violent events that are happening all over the world.
So he's gone from investigating haunted houses to potential global threats.
Yeah. That's a big jump.
That's a big jump. And this government organization, do we know anything about their motives? Are they the good guys, or is there something more sinister going on?
Well, that's one of the most interesting parts of the story.
Yeah.
It's that their motives are never really clear.
Oh, wow.
It makes the reader and Dakota question, who to trust and what this conflict is really about.
It adds a layer of moral complexity.
Oh, for sure.
Like he's working with these people who might be connected to some of this stuff that's going on.
Exactly.
And then we get introduced to the pings, these mysterious frequencies that are linked to a surge in violence.
Yeah, all across the globe.
And what I thought was so interesting is that Chandra, who's Dakota's girlfriend, she brings up the idea that maybe these pings are somehow connected to the phases of the moon.
Interesting.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a really fascinating idea.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets at this idea that the universe is all connected, that everything's linked in ways that we don't really understand.
Right.
And I think the author's pointing to something cosmic,
Right. It's not
something beyond what we can really grasp.
Yeah, it's not just ghosts and monsters anymore.
Right.
It's forces that could actually change reality.
Exactly.
Before we get into that, I want to talk about Dakota's grandfather.
Okay.
So he's on his deathbed.
Yeah.
And he gives Dakota this warning about some kind of danger to Chandra.
Right.
And it's just so poignant, especially with Olivia being there.
Yes.
And guiding Dakota through that.
It's such a key scene in the book.
Right.
It foreshadows the danger that Chandra's going to face.
Right.
And it makes Dakota's mission even more urgent.
Right.
But it also shows how important his relationship with Olivia is.
Yeah.
She's not just a friend,
Right.
She's there to support him and guide him through all this emotional and spiritual turmoil that he's going through.
It's like she's a connection to something bigger than himself.
Exactly.
That can ground him.
Yeah.
As the world around him is going crazy.
Yeah.
And speaking of going crazy, things escalate pretty quickly after that.
They do.
I mean,
we go from school fights turning into riots to the president going on TV and declaring martial law.
Oh, wow.
It's a rapid descent into chaos.
Yeah.
And it all leads up to this realization that the world is at war.
Wow. So the stage is set for this global conflict.
Yeah.
But who's the enemy? Is it like aliens? Demons? What are we dealing with here?
The reveal of the true enemy is one of the most shocking and thought-provoking parts of this whole story.
Good.
It turns out that it's not some outside force like an alien invasion or demons or anything like that.
Okay.
It's actually beings from other dimensions.
What?
These beings that have been manipulating human history for centuries, influencing our beliefs and our wars, and even how we understand reality.
So the men in black, the violence, the pains, all of it's connected to this like hidden force that's been pulling the strings all along.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
It's a really brilliant twist that makes you question everything you think you know about what we should be afraid of. You know, the real enemy isn't some monster. It's this manipulation and control, these unseen forces that shape our world in ways we may never understand.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
Right.
So Dakota's basically thrown into this interdimensional war. What kind of battles are we talking about? Is it like all psychic warfare, or are there more traditional combat scenes as well?
We see a mix of both.
Okay.
Dakota is powered by this Ashtarian energy source. And he ends up fighting creatures right out of myths and legends.
Wow.
And he's in these epic battles that are both fantastical and grounded in the realities of war.
Wow.
There's even a scene where he confronts Thor.
Like the Norse god of thunder.
Right.
That's unexpected.
Yeah, it shows how this story is truly multiversal.
Right.
You know, all these different realities and mythologies are coming together in this epic conflict.
That's a really bold choice by the author.
It is.
And it just adds this whole other layer of awe and wonder to the story.
Yeah, for sure.
It really makes you wonder what else the author has up their sleeve.
I think that's what keeps readers hooked, you know?
Yeah.
It's this constant state of what's going to happen next, because the story is always challenging our expectations. It blends genres, merges realities, and makes us question what's possible.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Yeah. It really does feel like a wild ride.
It does.
This constant, what's going to happen next? It really does feel like you're on this crazy train, you know, just going and going and going.
For sure.
But in the middle of all this craziness with like the universe and everything, I want to talk about Dakota for a sec.
Okay.
How is he dealing with all of this? He's still a teenager.
Right.
And he's caught up in this war with beings from other dimensions.
What's really amazing is that even though all this wild stuff is happening, the story never forgets that Dakota is human.
Right.
We see him struggling with all this responsibility. And the fear of losing people he loves. And he wants a normal life, but he has these crazy powers.
It makes you wonder if anyone could handle that.
Right, yeah.
Like the fate of the world is on his shoulders.
Yeah.
His relationship with Chandra is being tested. And his powers are changing in ways he doesn't understand.
Yeah, it's a lot for anyone to deal with.
It's a lot.
Especially someone so young.
And the author really shows us how all this affects him mentally and emotionally. He doubts himself. He's scared. He gets angry.
He does.
But it's through all these struggles that he becomes stronger and more resilient and even more determined to protect the people he cares about.
And I think that's what makes him such a relatable character.
Totally.
He's not this perfect superhero. He's a real person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He's flawed and vulnerable and just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, and the world has gone completely nuts.
Exactly.
It's like crazy town.
Yeah.
And it's his vulnerability and his empathy and his compassion that helps him connect with people.
Yeah.
And have these really strong relationships even when everything's falling apart.
Right.
And speaking of relationships.
Okay.
His relationship with Chandra is so important to the story.
It is.
Like their love for each other is so real and so grounding. Even while the world is going crazy.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
It shows that love and human connection can be a source of comfort and strength, even in the darkest times.
And their relationship isn't just some romantic side story.
Right.
It's like a beacon of hope.
Exactly.
Something worth fighting for. And it's not just Chandra.
Yeah.
His relationships with his shadow and light hunters are so interesting too.
They're
like these dueling parts of his personality.
Right.
Always giving him advice.
Yeah.
Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't. And they push him in different directions.
Yeah.
Do you think they represent something deeper, like about human nature?
I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
It's like they're showing Dakota's internal struggles, you know,
Right.
the battle between his darker impulses and his desire to be good.
something we could all relate to.
Oh, for sure.
Right, like that conflict within ourselves.
Right.
It's like they're his conscience or maybe even his subconscious trying to guide him when he doesn't know what to do.
And what's fascinating is that they change along with Dakota.
Right.
They're not static, you know?
Right.
They adapt as he faces challenges and makes choices. It's like even our inner demons and our guiding lights can change and grow.
That's so important.
It is.
Because the decisions he has to make get harder and harder.
Yeah.
And the stakes get higher and higher. He's not just fighting these beings.
Right.
He's facing moral dilemmas.
Yeah.
Questioning everything he believes in and trying to figure out what kind of hero he wants to be.
And that's what the story's really about, you know? It's not just action and adventure and battles and conspiracies. It's about Dakota's internal journey to find meaning and purpose in a world that's been turned upside down.
You mentioned earlier that Dakota is empowered by this Ashtarian energy.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
Well, that's something the story doesn't fully explain.
Right.
We know that it's connected to his psychic abilities.
Okay.
It makes his power stronger and lets him do amazing things.
Right.
But where it comes from, what it really is, it's still a mystery.
It's like this hidden potential inside him that he's just starting to tap into.
Exactly.
And as the story goes on, we see his powers changing.
Yeah.
Not just getting stronger, but like more controlled and precise. He's learning how to use them in different ways.
Right.
Like to communicate, to heal, even to explore his own subconscious.
It's an amazing journey of self-discovery.
Totally.
Like literally and figuratively, he's not just fighting external threats.
Right.
He's exploring his own mind, pushing the limits of what he thinks is possible.
He's not just a psychic warrior. He's a pioneer, exploring consciousness and human potential.
Exactly.
But there's a dark side to this exploration, right?
There is.
His powers could be used for bad things too.
Oh, definitely.
And the story shows us the consequences of that. We see Dakota struggling to control his anger and his desire for revenge.
Especially when people he cares about get hurt.
Right. It's like a constant reminder that power, even psychic power, is a double-edged sword.
It is.
It can be used for good or evil.
For sure.
And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
That's a classic theme in superhero stories.
It is, right?
That struggle to control your power, use it responsibly, and not give in to darkness.
And this story doesn't give us easy answers.
No, it doesn't.
Like Dakota makes mistakes.
He does.
He does things without thinking.
Yeah.
And he has to face the consequences.
And I think that makes it even more interesting because it shows that even people with extraordinary abilities are still human.
Yeah.
They make mistakes and they fail sometimes.
And those failures make his successes even more meaningful.
They do.
Like it's his willingness to face his dark side and learn from his mistakes that makes him a hero we can really root for.
It's a journey of self-discovery, you know?
Yeah.
Learning to accept both the good and bad inside us.
It's something we all go through.
It is.
Whether we have psychic powers or not. Yeah, it's like the story is a reflection of our own lives.
Yeah.
We may not be fighting like interdimensional beings, but we all have those internal battles, you know?
Totally.
But we have to choose between doing the right thing and giving in to our darker impulses.
I agree. Dakota Struggle is something we can all relate to.
Yeah.
Because it shows us what it means to be human.
Right.
You know, we all have good and bad inside us.
Right.
And it's a reminder that being a hero doesn't mean being perfect.
Right.
It means trying to be better.
Yeah.
Making the right choices even when it's hard.
Speaking of hard choices, things get really bad in War of the Universe.
Yeah.
When Jerry and his family are killed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that scene was just brutal.
It was.
Jerry was like a mentor to Dakota, you know? He was like a rock for him.
Yeah, he was a source of stability in a world that was just getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah, and when he's gone, it just...
Yeah.
It changes everything.
And that loss is a turning point in the story.
For sure.
It breaks down Dakota's sense of security, and it makes him so angry he wants revenge.
Yeah.
And it makes him realize the true cost of this war.
Right.
That people are dying.
Yeah.
And it's not just happening on some battlefield.
It's like, how much can one person take?
Right.
And it's not just Jerry.
Yeah.
Like, throughout the story, Dakota's betrayed. His heart is broken.
Yeah.
And he's constantly worried about losing the people he loves.
It's a heavy burden.
It is. Especially for someone so young.
It is, but it also shows how resilient he is.
Right.
You know, even when things are terrible, he finds a way to be strong.
Right.
He doesn't let the darkness win.
Hmm.
He uses his grief and anger to keep fighting for what's right, to protect the people he has left.
And that leads him to the final confrontation with John Ferry and Cortez.
Right.
It's such a tense scene.
It is.
With so much action and emotion.
Yeah.
And there are all these twists and revelations. I was like, what is happening?
One of the biggest twists for me was finding out that Cortez, this seemingly calm and collected government guy, is actually Chandra's father.
I know. It's crazy.
It adds so much complexity to the story.
Yeah.
It blurs the lines between enemy and family.
Right.
And loyalty and betrayal.
It makes you question everything.
Oh, yeah.
Who's on your side and who's not.
Exactly.
And then just when you think it's reaching a climax, it takes this weird turn.
It does.
Into this dreamlike sequence. What did you think about that?
I think it's a really clever way to show how realities are merging.
Right.
The lines between the physical world and the metaphysical world are blurring.
It's like the author is saying.
Yeah.
That when you have these interdimensional beings messing with history, reality itself becomes unstable.
Exactly.
And it all leads to this nuclear explosion, which completely changes the world.
It does.
What do you think the author is trying to say with that ending?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think it's open to interpretation.
Okay.
On the one hand, it shows what happens when ambition goes unchecked.
Yeah.
How humanity can destroy itself.
Right.
But it could also be seen as a new beginning.
Okay.
Like a necessary destruction that makes way for something new.
And after the explosion, we see these really powerful images.
We do.
Dakota is imprisoned. He's trying to get home, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And then there's Jessica. And her vision of an angel with red hair.
Right.
It's an ending that leaves you with so many questions.
It does, and I think that's intentional.
Yeah.
The author doesn't want to wrap everything up neatly.
Right.
They want us to think about what those final images mean.
Yeah.
And imagine what happens next.
That angel with red hair is so striking.
Yeah.
What do you think it symbolizes?
I think it represents the unknown.
Oh.
The possibility of both good and bad.
Right.
It reminds us that even in a world full of chaos and violence, there are still mysteries out there, things we can't understand.
And maybe that's the ultimate message of these two stories.
Yeah.
We want to understand the universe. We want to control our own destinies.
Yeah.
But there are forces beyond our control.
Right.
Mysteries we may never solve. But that doesn't mean we should give up hope.
I agree.
That even in dark times, there's still a chance for redemption, for a new beginning, for a better future.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And it's something we can all apply to our own lives. We may not be facing interdimensional beings or nuclear explosions, but we all have challenges and setbacks.
We do.
Times when we feel lost and hopeless.
Yeah.
And in those moments, it's important to remember that there's always hope. That things can get better.
That a new beginning is possible.
Well said. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into A Giant's Curse and War of the Universe.
Yeah, this was fun.
I hope you enjoyed it and that it made you think.
Me too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.